So for any of you that do not know me, my name is Mary Jackson. I am the AP and Travel Solutions Product Manager for SCM. And let's go ahead and get started. So our agenda today, I'm going to do a demo of the new allocation screen on the expense report and request. I'm going to show how to look up payments for out-of-pocket reimbursements in Aggie Enterprise. And then we'll do a glide review of the demo. Then we'll also discuss the Cognos travel and entertainment reports that are being replaced. That's the replacement for the DS travel and entertainment reports. And then we'll do Q&A.
Mary, I'm sorry to interrupt you right off the bat, but can you give a little bit of talk a little bit about who this information is for and who it may not be for?
Sure. So this is for anybody that does expense reports in Aggie Expense. So anybody, also the glide information may be for fiscal officers, if they need to review that. So pretty much anybody. So anybody that's doing any travel, right? Anybody that's doing any sort of entertainment and reconciling those in Aggie Expense.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so let me jump over here. Okay, so here this is our test environment. So that's why you're going to see this purple outline or border here. So for Aggie Expense, it is going to look exactly the same when you open it up. And then so I'll start the report exactly as I would today. So I'll do start a report. Okay. So then again, the report header here, all the same fields. I'm going to enter my report types. I'll just do a travel one. In state. Let's have a conference. Okay. And our dates here. Okay, again, everything the same here, and I'll create my report. And again, you're seeing all the same as you do today. So when I hit add expense, I'll have either my card transactions or can create an out-of-pocket expense. Let me grab a simple one. Let's grab this one. So then I'll go into the line and then add all my required information, just really as I do today. And then I'll hit save. Okay, and then so kind of once all that's done, when I want to allocate, right, I'll click on this, or from the line I could have clicked the allocate as well. But so I'll allocate from here. And then so this screen, again, same as today, nothing's changing here, but when I click add, this is where now I'll see the new all the new fields for the new chart of accounts. So our first option here, it's going to ask us if we're using a GL or PPM chart string. So for this first example, I'm going to show GL. So I'll say I'm doing a GL chart string. And again, you'll see right here my most recently used. So anything that I've used recently or used a lot will be here at the top. And then I can just select that, if I'm using the same one, and it'll populate some of these fields. But if I'm using a different one, I'll just choose GL/financial department. And then so here our second field is financial department/project. So when I choose GL up here, the only available options here will be the financial department. If I chose PPM, I'll see all the projects here in this list.
Mary, can I interrupt for 1 minute?
Sure. Go ahead.
There's a discussion on the chat regarding what is GL and PPM.
So it's part of the new common chart of accounts. So maybe we can put a link in there to the chart of accounts page with
Yeah.
some explanations on those. Yeah. Okay, so then here, so if I'm doing financial department, I can choose. So again, if I go, sorry, right here is most recently used again. So you'll see that on each field. If I scroll down, I'll just start seeing a list of all the financial departments, active financial departments that are coming out of Aggie Enterprise into AggieExpense. So if I want to search for it, I can change this little drop down and just choose either. And then that will allow me to either type in the name of the financial department or the number. So if I know if I just want to start kind of typing it in, SEM, typed in SEM, and then anything with SEM will start coming up. So I'm going to choose this one here. Now the approvers are slightly different in Aggie Enterprise compared to KFS. So everybody at the approver level will be at the same level. It's a little different than KFS today. We don't just have one and then delegates. So everybody's at the same level. So we had to bring all the approvers in, and then the person doing the report will have to select which one of those approvers will need to approve this specific report. So for the SEMS 000, the approvers will all be listed here. So there's a lot right now for this. So I can choose one of these, whichever person should be approving my report, I can select that person here. I'm going to choose Eddie. And then when I do GL, I'm going to have to enter the entity. And you'll notice that there are no asterisks, because if I do a PPM project, it's not going to be required. So there is a rule in the system that will prevent you from submitting the report without entering specific fields. So it'll tell you. So here I'll put in my entity. So then here, again, most recently used are coming up, but that's pretty much all of them. So they'll all be listed here. So I'm going to choose UC Davis campus.
Mary, can you just back up and tell us why you chose Eddie?
I just chose Eddie for this example. He's my supervisor. So
is this the approver that is the department approver, or is this the fiscal officer?
This is the fiscal officer.
Okay, so it'll still route to whoever's set up as the department approver. Okay.
After this person approves. Yeah.
And Mary, if you could hold up for 1 second, there's quite a few questions regarding this.
Okay.
So can you choose more than one approver?
No, you can only choose one.
And then, so yeah, is the approver the department approver, fiscal officer
No.
approval?
Yeah, so this is the replacement for the fiscal officer today.
Are there delegates on the back end so that if the selected approver is out, someone else in the department can approve?
Yeah, so the delegates in AggieExpense work exactly the same way. That will not change. So Eddie could have delegates created in AggieExpense. So he'll have to go into his delegates, add delegates with the permission to can approve.
Right. And then Julieta, what did you have a question?
Yeah, can the approver be the supervisor, like you just mentioned? This is Eddie, he's your supervisor. Does it have to be the fiscal officer, or can we just select somebody else?
Well, so they have to be set up in Aggie Enterprise as the approver for this financial department. So I'm not just selecting anybody here. These are people that are set up as the approver in Aggie Enterprise for this specific financial department. So it's really going to be on the department to decide who the approvers would be for this financial department. And there might be, this one, like I said, has multiple. There might be 2, there might be 3. So that's going to be kind of on the department to be setting those up.
But if it routes to, so as the fiscal officer today, you verify that the correct account is being used, the dollar amounts, et cetera, but then it also can be routed to, you can add levels of approval either before the fiscal officer or after the fiscal officer or before the department's head. Can that still be done so that the fiscal officer can review all these items?
Yeah, so this is going to be the fiscal officer. This is the fiscal officer replacement.
Okay.
Okay. And then you can still modify the workflow to add other approvers.
Got it. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank
That's
you.
not changing.
Thank you. That adds, thank you.
But can I ask, does the modifying the routing, that's on the person creating the expense report to know how to do?
Yes.
So that in our department, that's going to be a graduate student. They're not likely to understand that or they shouldn't have to understand that level.
So you don't have to. So you don't have to. Just some people, some departments, for whatever reason, want to add more approvers to the workflow. And so that is an option to do, but it's not a requirement. So it will route to this first approver, which is the fiscal officer, and then it'll always route to the department approver.
So if we were to have chosen a PPM project where it's a faculty project and the faculty is the spend authority on those funds, but not an AggieExpense department approver or a fiscal officer, how would that routing work?
So there is actually a project manager set up as the approver for each project in Aggie Enterprise, and they will be in here as well. And so I'm going to show, I'll go in after this one and show a PPM, what needs to be entered for a PPM.
Yep.
Yeah. Good. Rosemary, did you have a question?
No,
No.
but it's clear that, not all of the, almost near 480 people on this call, some have more knowledge and have been more involved, more deeply involved in, like the chart of accounts and the mapping of the old accounts to the new, chart of accounts.
Right.
And so all of these, an entity, a fund, a purpose, a program, is absolutely brand new for people. And I agree with Tracy that, there are going to be individuals, employees, and a GSR is a good example that is going to learn how to prepare their own expense report and go like, oh, who and where is it supposed to route to? And if it's, a faculty member, that's kind of clear. But then what is not clear to me is then does the faculty member know to route it to Tracy's business officer or fiscal officer, so I know definitely you have been deeply involved in the whole routing process and, so hopefully that will be clear by the end of this demo too.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So then, since I'm using GL, the fund will also be required. So again, I have my most recently used, or I can just scroll down and search, or again, I can type in some text and start. I can pull something up. So I'll just grab one here. Purpose will also be required. So again, I have most recently used, and then I can see all of them listed here. Okay, and then so that's all that will be required, but program, GL project, activity can be entered if needed for the specific transaction. So I'm going to hit save. Okay, so then now you'll see it kind of spelt out here what was selected. And then again, so you can do split accounting, so you can change the percentage like you do today. So I'm going to do that in this case so that I can show a PPM. So I'll hit add again. So now if I had a PPM project, I will select PPM here, PPM/project. So then here now all I'm going to see are the projects listed. Okay, so all the projects are here. So again, you can click on this, do either, and then start typing in your project, or I'm just going to grab one from here. And then, so like I mentioned, all the projects will have one approver. And that's just how it's set up in Aggie Enterprise. There's one approver per project. And that is the project manager, I believe it's called. So here, I'll just have one person on the list. So I can select them. And again, so this person, they can set up delegates that do have the permission to approve in AggieExpense if needed. Okay, so then when I do,
Mary,
oh, go ahead, yeah.
so you're saying that once a person selects a project, a PPM project, the only person that shows up to select is the approver, is the person who's already linked to that PPM account?
Right, yeah. Right.
So only because when you just clicked that, lots of people showed up.
Well, this is most recently used. So again, all my most recently used are going to show up, but the only one that's actually on the list, let me X out of that. If I chose this, it'll change all my fields because it's just saying these are the most recently used things that I've selected. So this right here below this little gray line is the only option I have for this project.
So there's no way to set this up so that the approver is automatically filled in, because I'm in the same boat as Tracy. I'm going to have a lot of grad students completing these.
Okay. Well, so for a project, there's only going to be one to select. And then financial department, there will be multiple, but I believe that's all going to be set up within the department. So the department will decide, I guess, how many approvers there will need to be. And hopefully give direction down to which approver should be selected.
Mary, is there a flow chart for the expense reports that shows who it goes to, just the different roles in what order?
We do not have a flow chart, but it's going to be the same as today. So right now it goes to the fiscal officer, which is this approver right here, and then it goes to the department approver.
And then the ad hoc routing, where does that happen?
So the ad hoc routing is not in this section right here. It's in the workflow. And that we have a lot of instructions on our website how to do that. So we can add those links into the chat maybe.
Thanks.
Okay. So when I choose project, a PPM project, the only other field that's going to be required is my expenditure organization. Okay, so then I'll just go down here and select which one it should be, and then hit save. Okay, and then you can see it here. So then at this point, I'll hit save. I'll say that looks good. Okay, and then now it's allocated and my report is complete at this point. So then I can submit. Did we have any questions at this point, Crystal? Are we good or?
Yes, there's actually a ton of questions. I'm not sure where to start.
Okay.
Crystal, Mary, maybe if you don't guys I can jump in real quick. I wanted to give a little high level maybe comment on some of the questions that we're getting. Hi everybody, my name is Eddie Montes. I'm the solutions manager for supply chain. I'm the co-lead on the SEM side for the Aggie Enterprise project. I just want to provide a little bit of context here and what we're hoping to accomplish today versus maybe some of the questions that I'm seeing on chat. I'm seeing a lot of questions about chart of accounts and PPM and their usage and what values need to be filled out, things like that. And I think I want to echo some of the comments that maybe some of the other folks have already chimed in from the departments that maybe have had a little bit more experience with the chart of accounts so far within the project. The new way of doing accounting that is gonna roll out with Aggie Enterprise is foundational. It's to me almost one of the most important things that is happening really with the new financial system. And it's also a very difficult one. It's a pretty big change from how we do things today. We on the SEM side, unfortunately, are not the ones that have driven the chart of accounts in terms of the mapping and the setup of the values and even the design of it so much. So many times when we have a lot of these trainings or demos, we do have a lot of challenges in answering some of your questions because that's not really our lane, which has been a little bit more difficult for us to kind of navigate through this. Our goal today was mostly to try to show you all what is changing in AggieExpense when we go live next year. And yes, the chart of accounts is the biggest change, which obviously lends itself to so many questions that a lot of you folks may have that unfortunately we may not be able to answer. So sometimes, and I would apologize for that, when we're going through some of these, we are catering some of these demos to those folks that have a little bit of knowledge, right, of the chart of accounts, the super users that every department now has, those folks that are being part of the change network for the Aggie Enterprise project, from the very beginning. A lot of other people, again, that have been part of all of those kind of discussions from very early on. So again, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, and again, maybe apologize a little bit in terms of maybe the content of what we're trying to do, but hopefully that helps understand a little bit better of what we're trying to kind of accomplish really by the end of today. I think some of the questions that we can really help answer is maybe a little bit more on the approvals and how we're setting it up. I think that is going to be a little bit different. Ultimately, I think our goal has been, can we replicate what is happening in Aggie Enterprise as much as possible also in AggieExpense, so that all of that training that has been going on for Aggie Enterprise when it comes to chart of accounts and PPM somewhat replicates what we're trying to do in AggieExpense as well. And that's kind of where a lot of these approvers is coming from. So again, I just kind of wanted to highlight that. There's going to be a lot of questions maybe about chart of accounts that we may not be able to help with. But hopefully, just having this demo will spark some of those conversations within your departments about the type of things that we need to start doing to prepare for that. Again, there's been a lot of questions on chat, a lot of things about trainings and who do we talk to and things like that. And my hope is that hopefully through some of these conversations, we can kind of find those answers together. But again, it's going to be a little bumpy, maybe it seems, just based on seeing on the chat in terms of kind of how that chart of accounts is going to work. So hopefully we'll start putting some links out there. Hopefully we'll be able to answer as many questions as we can. But again, I just want to chime in there a little bit and make sure that we were all kind of level setting a little bit about what we're trying to get done today.
Oh, thanks, Eddie. All right, okay, I'm going to open up Aggie Enterprise, and I'm going to show how you can look up the out-of-pocket reimbursements in future state. So today we see, let me actually go back here real quick. So today when somebody gets paid, like if this was an out-of-pocket expense, right, we would have, you would see report payments here. So you'll still see that, but the data is not going to come back into that section. So you'll go into the invoice section of Aggie Enterprise to find the information for those reimbursements. So here I'm on the main homepage of Aggie Enterprise, and I will go to payables, invoices. Maybe. Here we go. Okay, and then I'll go over here. I'll hit this little task, hit manage invoices. And then here is the invoice search. And this is where I'm going to search for my report key. And that's going to show me the out-of-pocket reimbursement information. So the invoice number is going to start with AE underscore, and then it's going to be the report key. So if I want to, I can change this to advanced and do invoice number contains. And then I can should be able to enter my report key here. See if it'll come up. So there it is. So then I will click on that. Okay. And so this is an invoice that was created from the expense report in AggieExpense. And so here you'll see, if I can go back here, you'll see the line information. So it's $500 for lodging. So then here, if I go over to payments, this is where I'll see really if it's been paid or not. And this one has been paid by a Wells Fargo check. And this is the check number. The status here right now says negotiable. Once it's cashed, it'll say reconciled. And then the reconciled will also change to yes. And then you'll also be able to see here the address that that check was mailed to. Okay. And then distribution details will be here as well if you need to see the chart string that was used. This one takes a few seconds to pull up. So this was a project, that's why it looks like that. So you'll see all the kind of information on the distribution information there. Okay, and then from here I'll hit cancel. This will take me back to the search results. Okay, and then I'm gonna pull up another one to show you one that was not been paid yet. And you can see what that looks like. So here also you can see kind of right on the line, it does say unpaid amount of 60. Let me pull it up. And then in the payments, you won't see any data. So that means it really hasn't been paid yet. And again, here's your line information. Okay. Any questions on this?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this process is after you register the expense in the Aggie expense. This
Yes.
is additional. So
Right.
you go to the normal report, you do the auto packet, then you have to fill out all this information.
No, this is coming in automatically from AggieExpense. So this is just a way to see if the payment has already been made to that guest or employee. So if somebody's
Oh.
asking the department, oh, I didn't receive my check for this yet, or I didn't receive any payment, this is a way to go in to find that payment information and see if it was paid or not. Yeah.
I got it. So we don't need to fill out all this.
No. So
Okay.
you're just going to do the expense report, and that data will automatically come into here to make those payments.
Okay, but we can go and check all this information. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Mary,
got a
what's the
question.
best job aid for this? What job aid would you recommend? I'm on the supply chain page or on the Aggie Enterprise page, and I clicked on the supply chain tile and I've scrolled down to the job aids. Would you recommend one of these job aids to remind us how to click through to what you just showed us?
To do the invoice search. I'm not sure, Jim. Is Jim here, Crystal?
I am
One
here.
second,
Yeah,
we'll.
yeah.
Is there a job aid yet to show how to do the searches?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
I'll put it in the
that's what I'm
links
thinking.
in the
Okay,
chat.
yeah, he'll put the link in the chat there. Thank you.
Hi, Mary. I got a question.
Okay.
So once the travel report is completed and there are personal non-reimbursable expenses, how long does it take for us to see the amount that they owe to the university for payment?
In my bill, is that what you're, or banner?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I think we have it. It's about 10 days out
Okay.
from the day. Yeah.
Okay, so we no longer, because our department tracks on these personal expenses, so we no longer have to track.
No, the personal expenses is staying exactly the same.
Okay,
Yeah, this is just for out of pocket.
out of pocket. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
That has to
Okay.
be paid back. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
Mary,
Yeah.
I was wondering, the invoice number you started typing 673, is that from Aggie? I was gonna say Aggie Travel, but is that where it's generated from, or how did you come up with that invoice number?
Yeah, this is the report key.
The report key, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to search by user or, the person being reimbursed or by the department or anything like that? Or do you have to have an invoice number?
You do not have to have the report key. You can search supplier or party. So this is considered a party instead of supplier. They're not in here as suppliers. So you can search the name if you want.
Okay.
So if I just search, I'll take this out and hit search. Let's go back, please. So then I can see every payment to that individual.
Great, thanks. What is
Yeah.
CA, just out of curiosity?
I'm sorry, what is what?
The invoices that start with CA?
Oh, I'm
What are
sorry,
those?
those are cash advances.
Okay, thanks.
Good point. Yeah, so cash advances will come in like this. Okay. All right, so if we don't have any more questions, I think
Hey,
I'll,
Mary.
oh, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
this is Lydia. So I'm just wondering the invoice number, how about you just leave it report key just to reduce confusion? So is there a reason why you changed it to be invoice number?
Because this is the field we're using in Aggie Enterprise.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we are just putting the report key in as the invoice number, so it's easier to search. Because everybody should have that report key.
Mary, this is Rosemary again. So, is it possible that the invoice number, if I were looking up any paid invoices to the ABC company that the university has paid, would I go here and that's why we're calling it an invoice number?
So your ABC, is that just a
It's a company.
invoice?
Yeah, it's just a company.
Yeah, so this is the standard invoice search in Aggie Enterprise. And so we have to put the data in the system as an invoice in order to pay it out.
Right, but what I'm trying to say is
Probably.
that it is a field that we can either look up Aggie Enterprise payments to employees, or these and then you see cash advance. But I mean, I realize I don't mean to digress, but like for purchasing, I mean, it is a little confusing to call it an invoice number per se, rather than, Aggie, the Aggie expense number. And that's why I was thinking that maybe it was also a place where we could look up when we're paying a vendor. So,
Oh yeah, this is would be the same search for any vendor payments. Yeah.
got it.
Or
Okay.
FI payments, yeah.
So that makes sense why it's called invoice. Okay.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, we aren't choosing to call it invoice. This is Oracle's configuration. We can't change it.
Mike, I thought you had a hard hand in this, labeling. So thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Okay. Any other questions specific to this? Or should we move on to Glide? Okay. All right, so let me pull up Glide. Okay. So Glide, I don't know if anybody has heard about Glide yet. So the Glide report is going to be within Cognos, and it was created for boundary applications. So it allows us to give more data to the departments based off of the transactions coming out of the boundary apps. So AggieExpense is considered a boundary application. So I have Cognos open here. So I will click on Glide. Okay. So Cognos, right? We're using it today for UC Path. So if anybody's familiar with those payroll reports, it'll be similar here, similar search results or search criteria. So the first one I can choose here is GL, all GL or PPM. So you can leave it as all, and it'll pull everything in. If you really want to be specific and just see what's going to PPM, you can select PPM. Or if you just want to see GL, you can do that as well. So for this scenario, I'll put all. This will obviously always be processed. So the accounting date and ERP creation date. So the ERP creation date means the date that it came into Aggie Enterprise, Oracle. And accounting date, they should mostly be the same date. Sometimes they might be a little bit different. So I'm just going to do the creation date. And I'm just going to go back a little ways so I can, and this will keep it September to December. So the journal source here, the source meaning where is this data coming from, right? So if I'm looking up from Concur, again, type in Concur, which is Aggie expense, and I'll hit search. So now my results down here say UCD Concur. I'll click there, and then I have to insert it over here. So again, this will allow you to pull in data from more sources if you needed to. Okay, so when I go down here, I have the Glide post ID, journal batch, GL purpose, GL entity, financial department, fund. So all the segments of the chart of accounts. So if there's anything specific you're searching for, you can add those here. So I am going to just do a search for my financial department. So I'm going to do SCM, and then everything with SCM will come up here. Again, I'll click on that one, hit insert. And so that's what I'm going to be searching for. So I'm going to click submit. Okay. And now here's all the data, anything that's posted to that financial department. So right here you have, this is your report key. Okay. We have ERP creation date, accounting date. So as I mentioned, mostly you'll see these as the same date. This is the transaction date. It's been processed. The Glide post ID, you'll notice if it says SAE, that is the file that's coming from Concur AggieExpense. So that means these will have all the postings for the expense reports. And then US Bank will be any of the bank files. So this will be the default transactions. So if I can scroll over here, this is going to be a lot of data, but hopefully it'll be helpful. So here you'll see your whole chart string right here. If a PPM was used, you'd have the PPM information here. Okay, let me scroll over. So here, this field, we have report key. Then we have our transaction date, posted date. This is the cardholder name, employee name. Here's going to tell you if it's a travel card or a P card. So you'll see T card or P card. Then we have the last 4 digits of the actual card number. And then here we have the vendor, merchant name. And then here, since these are reports, this is going to be your report description. So their report title. You'll see that here. Okay. And then your debits and credits will be there.
Mary, is Glide what we'll use to replace the unreconciled transactions reports in FIS?
No. So this is everything that's really posted to the ledger. So you have so this is kind of like the 2 report today with all the transaction postings, right? Like this was from the reports. This is what posted. These are the default charges for postings for the cards. And so this can be
just through AggieExpense. Everything that's posted to an account just through AggieExpense.
Yes, yeah, because I did sources Concur, UCD Concur. Yeah. Yes. And then, okay, so I can just go, let me go. Does anybody have any questions on this? It can be put into, oh, sorry. Let me go back. Oh, sorry, no. Well, this little icon here, once you have the data open, you can, let me see if I can pull it up. You can run it into Excel and it'll open into Excel and then you can do whatever you want with it from there.
Does Jim have a job aid for this?
No. There is for
Not
running
yet.
Cognos report. Sorry, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, to say nothing at this point. I'm still learning Cognos myself. I'm not a Cognos user because I don't work with UC Path. And so most people using Cognos right now are in the UC Path world. And Cognos is something that we'll be using some of. So at some point, hopefully we'll have some instructions. Mary will show you a resource towards the end of the session here that I started creating, but I'm still in the process of learning it as well. So long story short, eventually we'll have some information out there about the stuff that Mary's showing here today too.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Mary, is
Okay.
Glide an application in itself, or is this the only place we can see Glide reports within Cognos?
It'll be within Cognos.
So
Yeah.
Glide, there is no web app that is called Glide where you go in and see the details of internal boundary app transactions.
Can I answer that question for you guys?
Oh yeah, go ahead, Amber. Thank you.
Glide is a framework actually. So it stands for General Ledger. Oh man, gosh. Something detail entries.
You volunteered, Amber.
I know. I walked right into that. It trips me up because it's a lot of letters. But in short, behind Glide is a database that takes in lots of detail from your boundary applications. And then from that point, it goes through a framework that summarizes to the GL and posts to PPM. This report is simply a representation of what has been sent through to the Glide framework, either transactions that were successfully processed through or transactions that were brought into Glide, but maybe even didn't make it through. So it's a broader framework, and that's probably the best way to think about it.
So Glide is not something we at in the academic department would log into directly. We would only see reports from it
you're logging into Cognos actually. So it's the same place you go to get your UC Path reporting. And there's actually going to be other reports eventually supporting your Aggie Enterprise experience that are all going to be in Cognos. And the Glide report is just one of many reports that you access through Cognos.
Okay. So we don't have that drill down functionality of the internal transactions, the boundary app transactions that we kind of have now in FIS, where you can drill down to see more details. And
there's no direct connection going from Oracle to Glide, except for the fact that you should be able to use like the journal batch. You should see it in both places matching. And so if you're in Oracle and you see a journal, you should be able to take that journal and go look it up in Glide. They should be the same. But there's no like hyperlink where you click something in Oracle and then you end up in Glide. What you also see in Oracle is the source code. So every single application has its own source code. So that should give you an indication of what you're looking for in Glide.
okay.
Yeah, Tracy, I think you might be thinking of these reports down here. And let me talk about those right now.
Okay.
Mary, there were a couple questions though in the chat before you jump off that report.
Yeah.
I think somebody wanted to see it exported, if that's an option.
Let me run it again. Okay, I did a little shorter time frame. That's why there's not that many. Okay, so you can run as HTML, run as PDF, run as Excel. So I'll do Excel. Popped up here.
Don't stare at the screen, it goes slower.
You know. Oh, it's taking so long. There we go. Okay. There we go. So here it is all in Excel. Really long. Okay. Any questions here?
Just a comment, as a Cognos user, I can say that I always will export to Excel data instead of the one that you chose, just because it's easier to create your pivot table. As you can see, there are lots and lots of columns in the report you get. So if you report to Excel data, then it's just in a format that makes it easier to run a pivot table to narrow things down.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. Okay, so the travel and entertainment reports that are currently in DS today, right? We have our 417, the outstanding cash advances, 418, unreconciled card expenses, 419 report lookup, 421 unreconciled direct billings, and the 318 that shows all the department approvers. So we have replicated those in Cognos. So I'll show those here in a minute. So you will have to request access to those reports in Cognos. There is going to be an online request form that will be available soon, and we'll get some communication out when that's ready to go, so people can request that access. Okay, so let me get in here.
Mary, I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
For those reports you just listed, like, when would we use the Glide report versus one of these? Like, I'm just wondering what data.
So maybe Amber, do you want to explain the the ledger. It's a little slightly different than it is today, right? So
Yeah, but like you can still like you said the glide report was for the GL, but like couldn't I still look up unreconciled card expenses like in the general ledger? Like
you can, but that's not what the glide report is showing. It's showing what has posted and the details of that posting.
okay, gotcha. All right,
So
that helps.
because the posting to the GL is going to be, Amber, correct me if I'm wrong, is a thin ledger.
Mhm.
That might clump up like what posted to that one natural account. So it might
Right.
be $8,000 and you're like, what is within that 8,000? And then you would go to Glide to figure out all those transactions. Is that
Right.
right?
If you're like a fiscal officer and you're looking at either PPM or you're looking at the GL and you're trying to say, to Mary's point, what's posted and what are the details behind that posting, you're going to go to the glide report to get that detail. But I'm not sure that the glide report alone provides everything you need for reconciliation. And so you kind of would need to look at both, I think, reports in order to get a full picture of everything that you're working on.
Okay, so when an expense is coming from like a boundary application, are they grouped in batches like that are processed daily, and that's why they're getting grouped as like 8,000, or the general ledger just doesn't have the detail?
Yeah, there's kind of like 2 points to the idea of grouping. So one is an application can determine like how to send batches. They can send small batches or big batches, but either way, those batches contain detail that is not going to be shown in your general ledger. And so if you have like the same chart string repeating, let's say like one customer has many charges against one financial department, one fund, etc., they get grouped together as like a single, expense debit, for example. And so you see like maybe one entry. In order to accomplish that summarization in the general ledger, we choose a default description and we choose very generic journal batch descriptions, and it really doesn't tell you much at all. And so that's where you go back to Glide to actually get any level of detail that may have come from the boundary application.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Amber. Okay, so let me open up. Let me kind of show you an example of those reports. So again, like I said, we really replicated what the DS reports do today. So how about I'll pull up the 418, the unreconciled card expenses report. So here, we have a lot of different search criteria. So you'll start with your division. Let me just, let me choose this one. And then all the departments will come up. So I'll choose my department. You can choose transaction dates from and to. Go back here. I'm not sure what data will be in here since this is test. Let me do that. Okay. And then I'll want everything. So then you have your unreconciled or reconciled. I'll choose unreconciled. Card types, payment statuses. So again, same search criteria as we have today. And then let's see, what else do I need? Let me do OP card, or let me do travel card. Now I can hit submit. Okay, good. And then I'll see all the information kind of similar to what we see today in DS. So then I have all my transaction date, cardholder name, employee ID, merchant information. So you can see this as we do today, we see it's already linked to a report. And then if I click on this, it's going to drill down to that 416 report like we have in DS today, and it'll show you all the details. Okay. So then we'll see a little more. We'll see the expense line, any comments and stuff. Okay. And again, very similar data to what you're seeing today.
Mary, is this report available now?
It is in our test environment.
Oh, okay.
But it's, yeah, so no access right now.
But so in January, it'll be available?
Yes, and then, but you will have to request the access. And so we'll be sending out communication soon with how to request that access.
And Mary, I just want to echo something that Mike put on the chat. The Aggie Enterprise help form that I know shared a couple of my answers earlier on the chat. does have an option for Cognos reporting if there's any questions on that. So feel free to leverage that as well. Obviously, we'll try to take some of the information we are getting from the Cognos reporting team and put on our resources. But if you want to go directly to the source, again, the Aggie Enterprise Help Form has that option in there already, and hopefully they'll be able to help out with access requests and all of the questions that you may have.
Thanks, Eddie.
And then Rosemary, just to clarify, DS 418 does exist today. This is a current report.
Yeah. No, I know.
Okay. It should look and feel almost identical.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yep. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so do we want to go through any more questions, or do we think we got most of them answered as of,
I have a question that I put in the chat, but I don't think was
Okay.
covered. Back in the allocations in AggieExpense, when we're allocating to a PPM project, how do we select individual tasks on a project for projects that have multiple tasks?
So they'll all be listed there. So if there are more tasks, then the project will be listed multiple times with the task, with the, like if it's task 1, task 2, or task 3.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Along those same lines, can I just follow up on a question I put in the chat? Eddie replied back, thank you for that, Eddie. But I'm just trying to get a better understanding of what users are going to need to have available to them as they're entering a PPM project. And so specifically, I'm wondering about the expenditure organization. So right now, my understanding is that there is an expenditure organization directly tied to each PPM project. And so if you in the allocation screen, oh, I think that's what it was called. But when you're entering your chart string, if you select a PPM project and then you're also asked to enter in your expenditure organization, but you're getting a list that is a comprehensive list of all expenditure organizations. Is that how that works? So someone is going to need to know what the specific expenditure organization is that is tied to that PPM project? Or will there be some sort of validation that, okay, well, if you pick this project A, the expenditure organization that's already been set up and tied to that project is your only selection option? And I'm wondering if that's not the way it works, then what if someone has selected the expenditure organization that is not tied to the project? What happens then? Any ideas on those items?
Can I offer to take that one?
Oh yeah, please go ahead.
And this is probably a recorded session and maybe I shouldn't say this, but the expenditure organization doesn't really impact anything other than potentially reporting. So when you set up a PPM project, in that project header is the department owning organization, which controls how those costs roll up to the GL. On the POET string, the expenditure organization can be sent over not matching to what's in the header, at which point it has no impact on how things roll up to the GL. In some cases, boundary applications put their own department as the expenditure organization, and in some cases, they ask the user to provide it. There wasn't a lot of consistent guidance on how to handle that field. And so a lot of applications you come across allow the user to enter that value. A best practice is to enter the value that actually goes with that project, or you could instead enter your own if you're not sure what the appropriate value is. It's not an exact science because it doesn't actually, it's not 100% consistently handled the same way in all environments. And as a result, that does impact using that field for reporting later. So it's one of those unfortunate fields that I think could have used a little bit more work for long-term concerns.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Amber. I think that was actually
So Shireen, when it does come into Aggie Enterprise, it will find the GL chart string that matches that project. So that's going to all be, and then when it goes into PPM, it'll go to the correct, it'll be the correct, all the correct information that matches up to that project.
Right, which is in the header. So we set it correctly in the header, meaning that nobody can override your department when it rolls up to the GL.
Okay, so when you so there is a validation in some sense that if I select a PPM project, when the costs ultimately roll up to the GL for that project, it's going to hit the project, the financial department owning, oh my gosh.
It's the department owning
organization,
yeah.
right? It will hit the correct owning organization that's tied to the project. So
Right.
that will occur correctly. So then this idea of entering an expenditure organization when listing out your chart string, that I'm gonna have to think about that one. That's sort of an interesting, it doesn't really go anywhere, and I'm not sure how it impacts us. So
it's a larger concern that came up about a year ago, which is it doesn't really impact how things flow to the GL. So, you know, what is it good for? And if we're not consistently using it across applications and across work streams, then it has limited use for reporting. And so it's one of those open items that my advice to people is, you know, you need to pick a valid expenditure organization, like it needs to be a real department. But beyond that, you just follow the best practices as they're communicated.
okay, sounds good. And so then just one quick follow-up on the reports that Mary was showing. So the financial department that's going to be displayed when any project is used will be the actual financial department that's associated with the project, right?
It'll be correct in the GL.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm going to move to this slide here with all the resources. So we do have an allocation info page out there that kind of will show the screens of the allocation, how to kind of enter those fields. Again, here's our help desk email, expensehelp@ucdavis.edu with any questions that come up when we go live. Cognos questions for like how to use Cognos can be directed here. We have a started glide info page that we'll be adding some more information to there. And then here's our SEM YouTube channel link as well.
And Mary, office hours too. I was just thinking I was going to plug the office hours.
Oh, yes.
We could definitely have people come in Mondays and Wednesdays. Well, maybe different hours. So through Crystal, maybe help me here through
Just
December 20th.
December
One more week only?
13th, Mondays
Okay.
at 10, and Mondays 10 to 11, and Wednesdays 2 to 3, 3 to 4. And I'll put the information in the chat.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll have time for some additional questions. Obviously, more kind of one-on-one. Please come in. Let's take whatever time we can before the go live to try to prepare for it. And after go live as well, we'll also have office hours. We're planning on daily office hours for all the support that I know campus will need. So the more of this that we do, the better for everybody. We really appreciate everybody coming through and asking all the questions. We'll definitely get through it all together. So thank you, everybody, for being here.
I have a question. Are any of the expense types changing? So the ones that are like tied to the current object codes, and so that obviously needs to be converted over, right?
So the expense types are not changing, but the back end information is. So they'll be going to the appropriate natural account that's replaced the object codes.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.